I think I didn't do anything wrong, just told the truth about what I liked. But now I'm sitting here with legal papers in my hand, and everyone is acting like I'm the villain. All I did was say my husband's best friend was better in bed. How is that cheating? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The smell of roasted chicken filled our dining room as I set the last plate on the table. Daniel was arranging the wine glasses with his usual precision, while our kids, Sophie and Max, chatted excitedly about their day at school. It was one of those perfect family moments that I should have treasured, but instead, I was thinking about how boring everything had become. "Mommy, can I sit next to Daddy?" Sophie asked, her 7-year-old face bright with anticipation. "Of course, sweetheart," I replied, smoothing down her blonde hair. "Max, you sit here next to me." Daniel's brother Ethan arrived first, bringing his usual bottle of expensive wine and that easy smile that ran in their family. Then came Joan, my mother-in-law, carrying her famous apple pie and wearing that disapproving look she reserved just for me. Finally, my sister Iris showed up fashionably late, as always, with her perfectly styled hair and designer handbag. "Sorry I'm late," Iris announced, kissing my cheek. "Traffic was insane." As we settled around the table, the conversation flowed naturally, from work to the kids' activities to weekend plans. Daniel carved the chicken with methodical precision, just like he did everything else. Reliable, predictable Daniel. "So, Lysandra," Joan said, cutting into her chicken, "how's work at the medical office?" "Oh, same old administrative stuff," I replied, taking a sip of wine. "Though we did have some excitement last week when Dr. Peterson's wife caught him with his nurse." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Yikes, that's messy." "Tell me about it," I continued, feeling the wine loosening my tongue. "But honestly, I can understand why he strayed. Sometimes you need someone who actually pays attention to you, you know?" Daniel's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "What do you mean by that?" I should have stopped there, should have changed the subject, made a joke, anything. But the wine and the attention felt too good. "I'm just saying," I continued, looking directly at Daniel, "sometimes the person you're with isn't necessarily the best at everything. Like, remember when we had that conversation about your friends? I told you that out of all of them, Marcus was definitely the most skilled." The silence that followed was deafening. Sophie looked confused, while Max continued eating, oblivious to the tension. Joan's face had gone pale, and Ethan was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. "Lysandra," Daniel said quietly, his voice dangerously calm, "what exactly are you saying?" "Oh, come on," I laughed, trying to lighten the mood. "I'm just being honest. You always say you want me to be honest with you. Marcus has always been more attentive, more passionate. You know that." Iris shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Lys, maybe we should—" "No, it's fine," I interrupted. "We're all adults here. Daniel knows I had relationships before we got married. Marcus and I dated for almost a year before Daniel and I got together. I'm just saying, objectively speaking, he was better in bed. It's not a big deal." But Daniel's face told a different story. The color had drained from his cheeks, and his hands were gripping his fork so tightly his knuckles were white. "You're talking about Marcus Taylor?" Ethan asked slowly. "Daniel's best friend Marcus?" "Yes," I said, still not understanding why everyone looked so shocked. "Look, it was years ago, before Daniel and I were serious. I'm just being real here. Everyone's always so fake about these things." Joan suddenly stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "I think I should go." "Mum, wait," Daniel started, but she was already gathering her purse. "No, Daniel, I can't sit here and listen to this." She looked at me with disgust. "Lysandra, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is completely inappropriate." "I'm just being honest," I protested. "Why is everyone so upset about honesty?" After Joan left and Ethan made his excuses, Iris helped me clear the dishes, while Daniel put the kids to bed. The house felt different somehow, charged with an energy I couldn't quite place. "Liz," Iris said quietly as we loaded the dishwasher, "what were you thinking?" "I was being honest," I repeated. "Daniel always says he wants honesty in our marriage." "There's a difference between honesty and cruelty," she replied. "You just humiliated your husband in front of his family." "Oh, please. Men talk about their conquests all the time. Why can't I?" Iris shook her head. "Because Marcus is his best friend, Liz, and you're married to Daniel now. Some things are better left unsaid." When Daniel came back downstairs, his face was a mask I'd never seen before. Cold, distant, calculating. "Did you mean what you said?" he asked quietly. I shrugged. "It's not a big deal, Daniel. It was years ago." "That's not what I asked." "Yes, I meant it. But so what? It doesn't change anything between us." Daniel stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I see." He walked toward the stairs, then paused. "I'll be sleeping in the guest room tonight." "Daniel, you're overreacting." But he was already gone, leaving me standing in our kitchen wondering why everyone was being so dramatic about a simple truth. The next morning, Daniel left for work before I woke up. His side of the bed was cold, and I could hear the kids getting ready for school downstairs. When I came down, I found Sophie making cereal for herself and Max, something Daniel usually did. "Where's Daddy?" Max asked, his 5-year-old face scrunched with concern. "He had to leave early for work," I lied, not wanting to worry them. At the office, I couldn't concentrate on my administrative tasks. The insurance forms blurred together as I replayed the previous night's dinner. Maybe I had been a little too blunt, but wasn't honesty supposed to be the foundation of a good marriage? During my lunch break, I found myself in the break room with my co-workers Jennifer and Sarah, both of whom loved a good story. "You look stressed," Jennifer observed, stirring her coffee. "Everything okay?" "Just some drama with Daniel," I said, then found myself telling them the whole story. "I mean, I was just being honest about my past. Isn't that what marriages are supposed to be built on?" Sarah nearly choked on her sandwich. "You told your husband that his best friend was better in bed than him, in front of his family?" "When you put it like that, it sounds worse than it was," I protested. "I was just making conversation." "Honey," Jennifer said slowly, "that's not conversation. That's relationship suicide. You're both being dramatic. Daniel's just being sensitive because his ego got bruised. He'll get over it." But even as I said it, I remembered the look on his face, that cold, calculating expression I'd never seen before. By the end of the day, I realized my mistake in confiding in Jennifer and Sarah. The medical office was small, and gossip traveled fast. I caught whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms, and Dr. Peterson's receptionist gave me a look that could freeze water. When I got home, Daniel's car wasn't in the driveway. The kids were at after-school care, so the house was eerily quiet. I tried calling Daniel, but it went straight to voicemail. My phone rang, and I saw my mother's number. "Lysandra Marie Vane." My mother's voice was sharp with disappointment. "What in God's name have you done?" My heart sank. "Mom, how did you—" "Helen Morrison was at the grocery store and ran into Joan. She told me everything. How could you humiliate Daniel like that?" "I wasn't trying to humiliate anyone. I was just being honest." "There's a difference between honesty and cruelty, sweetheart. You've been married to that man for 8 years. He's a good husband and father. Why would you say something so hurtful?" "Because it's true," I said, my voice rising. "Why is everyone acting like I committed murder? It happened before we were married. That doesn't matter, and you know it. You need to apologize to Daniel immediately." "I'm not apologizing for telling the truth." There was a long pause. "Then you're a fool, Lysandra, and you're going to lose your family." After she hung up, I sat in my empty kitchen, anger building in my chest. Why was everyone taking Daniel's side? I hadn't cheated. I hadn't lied. I'd simply stated a fact about my past, and everyone was acting like I'd committed some unforgivable sin. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "You need to fix this, Lysandra. Daniel's really hurt." Then another from Iris. "Mum called me. She's embarrassed to show her face at church. You need to make this right." I threw my phone across the room, watching it clatter against the wall. This was ridiculous. I was the victim here, being attacked for my honesty. When Daniel finally came home with the kids, he was polite but distant. He helped Sophie with her homework, gave Max a bath, and read them both bedtime stories. But he didn't look at me, didn't speak to me unless absolutely necessary. "Daniel," I said as he headed toward the guest room again, "we need to talk." "I don't think we do," he replied without turning around. "This is stupid. You're acting like a child." He stopped then, slowly turning to face me. "Am I? Because I'm trying to figure out how my wife of 8 years thought it was appropriate to tell my family that my best friend was better in bed than me. I'm trying to understand how the woman I trusted with my heart and my children could be so casually cruel. It wasn't cruel. It was honest. No, Lysandra, it was calculated. You wanted to hurt me, and you succeeded. That's not true. Isn't it? Because I've been thinking about this all day, and I can't come up with any other explanation for why you would say something so deliberately hurtful." He disappeared into the guest room, leaving me standing in the hallway with my mouth open. The next morning brought more fallout. Joan called to tell me she wouldn't be coming to Sophie's dance recital on Saturday. Ethan texted to say he was disappointed in me. Even my own sister seemed to be pulling away. But the worst part was the silence from Daniel. He moved through our house like a ghost, present but not really there. He spoke to the children, handled his responsibilities, but treated me like a stranger. I realized I needed to take control of the narrative before things got worse. Saturday night was Rebecca Martinez's birthday party at O'Malley's, the local gastropub where our friend group always celebrated. I spent extra time getting ready, choosing a dress that showed off my figure and doing my makeup carefully. If Daniel wanted to play the wounded husband, I'd show everyone that I wasn't going to be ashamed of telling the truth. Daniel barely spoke to me during the drive there, his hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. The silence in the car was suffocating. "You know," I said as we pulled into the parking lot, "you're going to have to get over this eventually. People are going to start asking questions if you keep acting like this." "Let them ask," he replied quietly. O'Malley's was crowded with the usual Saturday night crowd. Our friends had pushed several tables together in the back corner, and I could see Rebecca's blonde head bobbing as she laughed at something someone said. Marcus was there too, looking uncomfortable when he saw us approach. "Daniel, Lysandra," Rebecca called out, slightly tipsy already. "Come sit. We were just talking about the new restaurant that opened downtown." I slid into the booth next to Marcus, while Daniel took a seat across from us next to Tom Bradley, another friend from college. The conversation flowed around us, work stories, gossip about mutual friends, plans for the summer. But I could feel the tension radiating from Daniel, and I noticed that Marcus seemed unusually quiet. Several drinks in, I decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. "You know," I said loudly enough for the whole table to hear, "Daniel's been giving me the silent treatment all week because I told the truth about something." The conversation stopped. Rebecca looked confused, while Tom glanced between Daniel and me with obvious discomfort. "Liz," Daniel said quietly, "don't." "Don't what? Don't tell our friends that you can't handle your wife being honest." I laughed, the sound sharp in the suddenly quiet space. "I simply mentioned that Marcus here used to be quite the romantic back in the day. Before Daniel and I got together, of course." Marcus's face went white. "Lysandra, maybe we shouldn't—" "Oh, come on," I interrupted, riding the wave of alcohol and attention. "We're all adults here. I was just telling Daniel's family that out of all his friends, you were definitely the most talented in bed. It's a compliment." The silence that followed was deafening. Rebecca's mouth fell open. Tom looked like he wanted to disappear, and several people at nearby tables had turned to stare. Daniel stood up slowly, his face completely emotionless. I'm leaving. See, I said to the table, gesturing at his retreating figure. He has no sense of humor, can't handle a simple truth about the past. Lysandra, Marcus said quietly, that wasn't okay. Oh, please, you should be flattered. I was giving you credit for your skills. But Marcus was already standing, following Daniel toward the exit. One by one, the others began making excuses and leaving. Within 20 minutes, I was sitting alone with Rebecca, who was staring at me like I'd grown horns. Lys, she said carefully, what just happened? Daniel's being dramatic because his ego got bruised. Men are so fragile. You just told a room full of people that your husband's best friend was better in bed than your husband. How is that not devastating to him? It's the truth, I said, but for the first time, I was starting to feel uncertain. Some truths don't need to be shared, Rebecca replied, especially not like that. I took an Uber home, expecting to find Daniel waiting to continue our argument. Instead, the house was dark and empty. His car wasn't in the driveway, and when I checked the guest room, his overnight bag was gone. A cold fear began to settle in my stomach. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. I texted, but got no response. By Sunday morning, I was genuinely worried. Iris came over around noon, her face grim. Have you heard from Daniel? I asked immediately. He's at Mum's house, she said quietly. He called her this morning. He called your mother? Why would he call Helen? Because he needed someone to talk to, and apparently, you've burned bridges with everyone in his family. Iris sat down heavily on the couch. Lys, what were you thinking last night? How do you know about last night? Rebecca called me. She's worried about you. She said you completely humiliated Daniel in front of everyone. I didn't humiliate anyone. I just told the truth. You told a room full of his friends that his best friend was better in bed than him. How is that not humiliation? I opened my mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come. For the first time, I was starting to see how my honesty might have looked to others. He'll come home, I said finally. He just needs time to cool off. But as Sunday turned into Monday and Monday into Tuesday, Daniel still hadn't come home. He'd pick up the kids for school and drop them off afterward, but he wouldn't even come inside. He'd text me about logistics, who was picking up Sophie from dance, what Max needed for his school project, but nothing personal. The silence was becoming unbearable. On Wednesday, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I drove to his office building and waited in the parking lot until I saw his car. When he came out at lunch, I intercepted him. Daniel, we need to talk. He looked tired, older somehow. I don't think we do. Yes, we do. This has gone on long enough. The kids are asking questions. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to publicly humiliate me. I didn't mean to humiliate you. I was just being honest about our past. Our past? His voice was dangerously quiet. Lysandra, you didn't just talk about the past. You compared me to Marcus in front of all our friends. You made me look like a fool. That wasn't my intention. What was your intention? Because I've been trying to figure that out for a week now, and the only conclusion I can reach is that you wanted to hurt me. That's not true. Then explain it to me. Explain why my wife thought it was appropriate to tell my family and friends that my best friend was better in bed than me. Explain why you thought that was something that needed to be shared. I stared at him, realizing I didn't have a good answer. I don't know. It just came up in conversation. No, Lysandra, you brought it up, twice. Once at dinner with my family, and then again at Rebecca's party. That's not conversation, that's deliberate. He started walking toward his car, and I followed. Daniel, please, can't we just move past this? It was a mistake. He stopped and turned to face me. Do you know what the worst part is? It's not that you said it, it's that you don't understand why it was wrong. You're not sorry for hurting me. You're sorry that there are consequences. That's not true. Prove it. Tell me exactly what you did wrong. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. I hurt your feelings. How? By telling people about Marcus. What about Marcus? I felt trapped, cornered, by saying he was better. Better at what, Lysandra? In bed, I whispered. And why was that wrong? Because it hurt you. And I stared at him, not understanding what else he wanted me to say. Because it was private, he said finally. Because some things should stay between a husband and wife. Because you took something intimate and personal and used it as a weapon to hurt me. Because you did it in front of my family and friends. Because you showed complete disrespect for our marriage and for me as your husband. Tears started running down my cheeks. I'm sorry. Are you? Or are you sorry that I'm not just getting over it like you expected? I couldn't answer because I wasn't sure myself. I need space, Lysandra. I need time to figure out if this marriage can survive what you've done. What does that mean? It means I won't be coming home for a while. He got in his car and drove away, leaving me standing in the parking lot with the horrible realization that I might have destroyed my marriage with my need to be honest. 2 weeks passed with Daniel staying at his mother's house. The kids were confused and anxious, asking daily when Daddy was coming home. I gave them vague answers about work trips and grown-up problems, but Sophie was old enough to sense something was seriously wrong. Is Daddy mad at you? She asked one evening as I tucked her into bed. Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements, I said carefully. But he'll come back, right? This is his home too. Of course, sweetheart, everything will be fine. But I wasn't sure I believed it anymore. My mother had called twice more, both times to lecture me about the importance of swallowing my pride and making things right with Daniel. Even Iris seemed to be pulling away, making excuses when I asked her to come over or meet for lunch. The worst part was the isolation. Our friend group had clearly chosen sides, and it wasn't mine. Rebecca had stopped responding to my texts. Tom's wife, Jennifer, had been cool to me when I ran into her at the grocery store. Even Marcus had apparently disappeared, not responding to my attempts to reach out. On a Thursday night, 3 weeks after the dinner that started everything, I decided I couldn't take the silence anymore. I drove to Joan's house, where Daniel had been staying, and parked outside until I saw his car pull into the driveway. I waited until he got out, then approached him before he could get inside. Daniel, please. We need to talk. He looked exhausted, and I noticed he'd lost weight. Lysandra, what are you doing here? I'm trying to save our marriage. The kids miss you. I miss you. Do you? Because 3 weeks ago, you seemed pretty content to humiliate me in public. I've had time to think about what happened. I know I made a mistake. What mistake was that? I took a deep breath. I shouldn't have brought up Marcus in front of other people. It was private information that should have stayed private. He studied my face for a long moment. And I hurt you. I made you feel bad about yourself, and that wasn't fair. Anything else? I struggled to think of what else he wanted me to say. I should have considered your feelings before I spoke. Yes, you should have, but that's still not the whole problem. Then tell me what the problem is, because I'm trying here. Daniel looked around the neighborhood, then back at me. Get in your car and follow me. We'll go somewhere private to talk. We drove to a small park about 10 minutes away. The parking lot was empty, and Daniel led me to a bench near a playground. The setting sun cast long shadows across the grass. The problem, he said once we were seated, isn't just that you said what you said. It's what it revealed about how you see me, how you see our marriage, and how you see yourself. I don't understand. When you told my family that Marcus was better in bed than me, what were you trying to accomplish? I wasn't trying to accomplish anything. It just came up in conversation. No, Lysandra, it didn't just come up. You brought it up deliberately, both times. So what were you trying to do? I felt defensive again. I was just being honest. About what? About something that happened before we were married? Something that had no relevance to the conversation? Something that you knew would hurt me? I didn't know it would hurt you that much. Bullshit. The profanity was so unexpected coming from Daniel that I actually flinched. You knew exactly what you were doing. You wanted to hurt me, to make me feel small, to establish some kind of power over me. The question is why? That's not true. Then explain it to me. Explain why my wife felt the need to compare me unfavorably to my best friend in front of my family and our friends. I opened my mouth to deny it again, but something in his expression stopped me. He looked broken, defeated in a way I'd never seen before. Have you been unhappy in our marriage? He asked quietly. No, of course not. Have I been neglecting you, not paying enough attention to you? Well, I hesitated. Sometimes I feel like you take me for granted. How? You're always working, or with the kids, or doing projects around the house. We never just talk anymore. We never have fun. So you decided to hurt me instead of talking to me about it. I wasn't trying to hurt you. Lysandra, look at me. He turned on the bench to face me fully. I need you to be completely honest with me right now. Have you been in contact with Marcus since we got married? My heart started racing. What do you mean? I mean exactly what I asked. Have you been talking to Marcus? Texting him? Seeing him? We're friends. We all hang out together. That's not what I'm asking. And you know it. I looked away, unable to meet his eyes. Sometimes we text about work stuff. He's in IT too, you know that. What kind of work stuff? Just technical questions. Computer problems. Show me. What? Show me the text messages between you and Marcus. Daniel, that's crazy. You don't trust me? Right now? No, I don't. Show me your phone. I'm not showing you my phone. That's an invasion of privacy. Privacy? His voice was getting louder. You want to talk about privacy? You violated the privacy of our marriage when you shared intimate details with my family and friends. You violated my privacy when you compared me to another man in public, but now you want privacy for your text messages. It's not the same thing. Show me the phone, Lysandra. No. We sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of my refusal hanging between us. I see, he said finally. So you can share private details about our sex life with anyone who'll listen, but you can't show your husband your text messages. That's not fair. Fair? He laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I can't look my mother in the eye because she knows intimate details about our marriage? Is it fair that I can't hang out with my friends because they all know you think Marcus is better in bed than me? Is it fair that my children are asking why Daddy doesn't live at home anymore? Tears were streaming down my face now. I'm sorry, I'm really, really sorry. For what? Be specific. For telling people about Marcus, for hurting you, for making you feel bad, and for lying to me about your relationship with him. I haven't lied about anything. Then show me your phone. We were at an impasse. I knew that if I showed him my phone, he'd see the flirtatious texts Marcus and I had been exchanging for months. Nothing physical had happened, but the emotional affair was clearly documented in our message history. I can't, I whispered, because there's something on there you don't want me to see. It's not what you think. Then what is it? I couldn't answer. How could I explain that Marcus and I had been having increasingly intimate conversations, that he'd been telling me how much he missed me, how he'd never gotten over me, that I'd been complaining to him about Daniel, sharing details about our marriage that I should have kept private? I think I have my answer, Daniel said, standing up from the bench. Daniel, wait, please. Nothing physical happened. We never met up or anything like that. But there was something. I nodded miserably. How long? A few months, but it was just texting, just talking. About what? Just life, work, our relationships. You mean our marriage? You were discussing our marriage with the man you publicly declared was better in bed than me. It wasn't like that. What was it like, Lysandra? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been having an emotional affair with my best friend, and then you decided to humiliate me by comparing us in public. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, and now I have to figure out if there's anything left of our marriage worth saving. He started walking back toward his car, and I followed desperately. Daniel, please. We can work through this. I'll stop talking to Marcus. I'll do whatever you want. He stopped and turned around one last time. The problem is that you don't understand what you've done. You think this is about Marcus, but it's not. It's about the fact that you're capable of being deliberately cruel to someone you claim to love. It's about the fact that you've been lying to me for months. It's about the fact that you don't seem to have any remorse for the pain you've caused. I do have remorse, I'm sorry. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there are consequences. But you're not sorry for what you did because you still don't think you did anything wrong. He got in his car and drove away, leaving me standing in the empty parking lot with the devastating realization that my marriage might really be over. That night, I sat in our empty house and finally looked at my text messages with Marcus. Reading them with fresh eyes, I could see how inappropriate they'd become. The complaints about Daniel, the reminiscing about our past relationship, the increasingly flirtatious tone. I'd told myself it was harmless, just conversation, but seeing it all laid out, I realized Daniel was right. I'd been having an emotional affair, and then I'd compounded it by humiliating him in public. For the first time, I began to understand the magnitude of what I'd done. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a process server who seemed embarrassed to be there. I stared at the official documents with their legal terminology and court stamps, unable to process what I was seeing. Petition for dissolution of marriage was typed at the top in bold letters. Below that, Daniel's name as petitioner and mine as respondent. The papers cited irreconcilable differences and requested joint custody of the children, division of assets, and spousal support. My hand shook as I read through the pages. He was serious. Daniel was actually divorcing me. I called him immediately, but it went to voicemail. I tried again an hour later, then again that afternoon. Finally, around dinner time, he called back. I got the papers, I said as soon as I answered. I figured you would by now. Daniel, this is crazy. We can work this out. We don't need lawyers. Yes, we do. We clearly can't communicate effectively on our own. But divorce, really, over one mistake. One mistake? His voice was incredulous. Lysandra, you had an emotional affair with my best friend, then publicly humiliated me about it. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of betrayal. I wasn't having an affair. We were just talking. I've seen the text messages. My blood ran cold. How? Marcus showed them to me. He felt guilty about what had been happening and wanted to come clean. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Marcus had betrayed me, shown Daniel our private conversations. He had no right to do that. He had every right. You were both lying to me, and at least he had the decency to tell the truth eventually. What did he show you? Everything. The complaints about our marriage, the reminiscing about your past relationship, the plans to meet up for coffee that you thankfully never followed through on. I had forgotten about those messages, the ones where Marcus had suggested we get together to catch up, and I'd been tempted to say yes. Nothing happened, I said weakly. Something was happening, and if I hadn't confronted you when I did, it would have become something physical eventually. You don't know that. Don't I? You were already comparing me unfavorably to him in public. You were already sharing intimate details of our marriage with him. How long before you decided to see if the physical chemistry was still there? I couldn't answer because I wasn't sure he was wrong. The papers request joint custody, I said, changing the subject. That's what I'm hoping for, unless you want to fight me on it. Of course I don't want to fight you on it. They're my children too. Then we should be able to work out a reasonable arrangement. Daniel, please. Can't we try counseling first? Can't we at least attempt to save our marriage? There was a long pause. Do you want to save our marriage, Lysandra? Or do you just not want to be divorced? I want to save our marriage. Why? The question caught me off guard. Because I love you, because we have children together, because we've built a life together. Do you love me, or do you love the life we've built? Both. I love you both. Then why did you try to hurt me? Why did you share intimate details of our marriage with another man? Why did you compare me to him in front of our family and friends? I struggled to find an answer that made sense. I don't know. I was stupid. I was thoughtless. I made terrible decisions. You made deliberate choices, and those choices have consequences. After he hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at the divorce papers. The legal language was intimidating, full of terms I didn't understand. I needed a lawyer, but the thought of actually hiring one made everything feel more real, more final. I called Iris, hoping for support, but she was less sympathetic than I'd expected. Maybe this is for the best, she said after I told her about the papers. How can you say that? He's my husband. A husband you've been complaining about to his best friend for months. A husband you publicly humiliated. Maybe you should think about whether you really want to be married to him. Of course I want to be married to him. Do you? Because your actions suggest otherwise. Even my own sister was taking Daniel's side. I hired a lawyer the next day, a woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in family law. She was professional but direct, asking pointed questions about my relationship with Marcus and the circumstances that led to Daniel filing for divorce. Your husband has documentation of inappropriate communications between you and his friend, she said after reviewing the papers Daniel's lawyer had filed. That's going to hurt your position, especially if he decides to pursue full custody. He said he wanted joint custody. For now. But if you contest the divorce or if things get contentious, that could change. Courts don't look favorably on extramarital relationships, even emotional ones. It wasn't a relationship, it was just texting. Mrs. Vane, I need you to be completely honest with me. Was there any physical contact between you and this Marcus person during your marriage? No, nothing physical happened. Any meetings, coffee dates, lunches? No, we only saw each other in group settings with Daniel and our other friends. That's good, but the text messages are still problematic. From what I can see, they show a pattern of emotional intimacy and complaints about your marriage. That's going to be difficult to defend. She explained the divorce process, the timeline, the likely outcomes. California was a no-fault divorce state, which meant Daniel didn't have to prove I'd done anything wrong to get a divorce. But my behavior could still affect custody and support decisions. My advice, she said, is to try to work out an amicable settlement. Fighting this will be expensive and painful for everyone involved, especially your children. That evening, I tried calling some of our mutual friends, hoping to find allies who might help me reconcile with Daniel. But the responses were uniformly cold. Rebecca was polite but distant. I think you both need to work through this privately, she said. Tom was more direct. Lysandra, what you did was really messed up. Daniel's a good guy and you humiliated him. I don't think there's anything anyone can say to fix that. Even my co-workers at the medical office had heard about the divorce through the gossip network. Dr. Peterson's receptionist, who'd always been friendly, now barely acknowledged me. I was becoming a pariah, and I didn't understand how everything had spiraled so far out of control from one dinner conversation. The worst part was the impact on Sophie and Max. They were confused and anxious, acting out at school and clinging to me when they came home. Sophie had started having nightmares, and Max had regressed in his potty training. When is Daddy coming home? Sophie asked every night. Soon, sweetheart, I lied, not knowing how to explain that Daddy might never come home. A week after receiving the divorce papers, I made one last desperate attempt to reach out to Daniel. I drove to his office and waited in the parking lot until he came out for lunch. Lysandra, you can't keep ambushing me like this. I just want to talk. Please, 5 minutes. He looked tired, older. The stress was clearly affecting him too. What do you want to say? I want to say that I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for what I did. I understand now how much I hurt you. Do you? Yes, I violated your trust. I shared private things about our marriage with Marcus. I compared you to him in a way that was cruel and unnecessary. I made you feel small and humiliated in front of the people who matter most to you. He studied my face. And I had an emotional affair. I was sharing things with Marcus that I should have been sharing with you. I was seeking emotional intimacy outside our marriage instead of working on the problems we were having. What problems were we having, Lysandra? I felt like we were drifting apart, like you were more focused on work and the kids than on me, like we'd stopped being lovers and just become roommates. So instead of talking to me about it, you talked to Marcus. Yes, and that was wrong. I should have come to you. I should have suggested counseling or date nights or something to reconnect us. But you didn't. No, I made the worst possible choice. I sought attention and validation from another man, and then I used that relationship to hurt you. We stood in silence for a moment. I thought maybe I was getting through to him. It's too late, Lysandra. It doesn't have to be. We could start over. We could go to counseling. We could rebuild the trust. I don't think I can ever trust you again. You could try. For the kids. For the life we've built together. The kids will be fine. They're resilient. And the life we built together was apparently not as solid as I thought. Daniel, please. No, I'm done. I can't spend the rest of my life wondering what you're really thinking, who you're really talking to, whether you're going to humiliate me again the next time you're unhappy about something. He walked away, leaving me standing in the parking lot with the devastating realization that my marriage was truly over. The custody hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in late spring. I'd spent weeks preparing with my lawyer, going over potential questions and practicing my responses. Patricia had warned me that Daniel's attorney would likely bring up the text messages with Marcus and the public humiliation at the restaurant. Just be honest, she advised. Don't try to minimize what happened, but don't be overly dramatic either. The judge wants to see that you understand your mistakes and that you're focused on what's best for the children. I arrived at the courthouse early, wearing a conservative navy suit and minimal makeup. Daniel was already there with his lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in her 50s. He looked calm and composed, while I felt like I might throw up. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, with fluorescent lighting and worn carpeting. Judge Martinez was a middle-aged Hispanic woman with kind eyes, but a no-nonsense demeanor. Daniel's lawyer went first, presenting their case for joint custody, with Daniel having primary physical custody. She outlined his stable living situation, his consistent involvement in the children's lives, and his strong support network. Then she brought up my extramarital relationship with Marcus and the public humiliation of Daniel. She had copies of the text messages, witness statements from the dinner at our house, and the incident at O'Malley's, and character references for Daniel from friends and family. On the stand, I followed Patricia's advice. Honest, no excuses. I made grave mistakes, I told Judge Martinez. Inappropriate texts with my husband's friend, too personal, intimate. I complained about Daniel, discussed private meetings we never took. I publicly compared him unfavorably to Marcus. I regret it all. But I love Sophie and Max more than life. I've never risked or neglected them. Daniel's lawyer pounced. Specifics on inappropriate? Text turned flirtatious, emotional. Shared marital details. Complained. Planned meetups. Yes, we discussed but didn't. Considered it? Yes. Public humiliation? Yes. Questions your judgment for the kids? Those were marital errors, not parenting. I've kept them safe, attended to needs. Daniel testified calmly. Stable home, family support, consistent dad. I don't want to cut her out, just stability for them now. Judge quizzed us on homes, schedules, co-parenting. She weighed every word. Recess. Joan, Ethan, in hall for Daniel. Mum with me, eyes down, avoiding them. Ruling. Difficult case, loving parents, but Mrs. Vane's boundary lapses show poor judgment on stability. Joint legal custody, primary physical to Mr. Vane. Mrs. Vane. Every other weekend, 1 weekly evening, holidays to arrange. Review in 6 months if changed. Heir vanished. Weekend mum. Your Honour, they need me daily. Good parent, bad wife, unfair to them. Stability first, maintains both parents, provides consistency, petition to modify later. Courtroom tears as Patricia packed. Sorry, Lysandra, show stability, we fight in 6 months. Outside, Daniel approached. Didn't punish you, best for kids. They need their mother. Need good decisions, you'll see them. As a visitor. My choice, prioritized Marcus, humiliated you. Consequences, not punishment, protecting from your chaos. He left. Mom. Home, sweetheart. No home, house selling, kids with him, me in some apartment, evening in boxed-up family room, divorce weeks away. Daniel got kids, house, respect. Scrolled contacts, Marcus ghosted. Friends sided with Daniel, called Iris. Lost primary, weekend visits. Sorry. How? You know, emotional affair, public shaming, selfish choices. Deserve losing kids? Not lost, visiting. Yes, consequences for wrecking a good man. Dark, empty house. I'd nuked marriage, kids' daily life, relationships. For thrills, ego, honesty. Truth as weapon, destroyed all. 6 months, tiny apartment, scheduled visits. Daniel fair, no games. But kids distant, polite, comfy with dad, Grandma Joan, new routines. I was the visitor. Final papers, Lysandra Mallow, single. A year ago, secure family woman. Threw it for nothing I grasp. Daniel Wright, deliberate choices, not mistakes. Now, consequences, forever. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.